test, 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 test.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I invite you to take a moment to enter a space of rest, meditation, and quiet contemplation as we enter this service with the ringing of the gong and the prelude. Good morning and welcome. Welcome to Olympia Brown Unitarian Universalist Church. Welcome to everyone here in person and everyone joining us on YouTube, both now and in the future. I'm Patty Riemann. My pronouns are she, her. Today's welcome is by the Reverend Meg Barnhouse, a well-loved UU minister who passed away in January. The beauty of the whole. We gather to worship, our hearts alive with hope that here we will be truly seen, that here we will be welcomed into the garden of this community, where the simple and the elegant, the fluted and frilled, the shy and the dramatic complement one another and are treasured. May we know that here each contributes in their way to the beauty of the whole. Come, let us worship together, all genders, sexualities, politics, clappers and non-clappers, progressive or conservative. May we root ourselves in the values of this faith: compassion and courage, transcendence, justice, and transformation.
Our chalice lighting words are from the UU poet and minister, the Reverend Lynn Unger. Though we may find it hard to believe, even the onions under the sink know it's spring. There in the dark, between the dish detergent and the dusting rags, they are reaching pale green fingers toward the sky. Even in Wisconsin, where sometimes winters stretch out wider than the Great Lake, the onion's story is convincing. The calendar, with its marching regiment of days, is just a clever con. But onions know what it means to feel life stirring underneath your dry and cracking skin. That restlessness to reach outside of your own dense self, the many-layered longing for a new shape. Spring is here. How could an onion lie? Witness the faith of the potatoes who keep their silent vigil with ever-growing eyes. They look like them, though. Yeah. In honor of Earth Day, which is this coming Wednesday, would you join in a song that sees the Earth as a sailing ship with precious cargo on board? Number 1064 and the teal hymnal, Blue Boat Home. Please rise in body or spirit.
And now it's time for the message for all ages. So if all the children and those young at heart can come on forward. Today, the book I'm going to read for you is called Why Not? And it's from one of my favorite children's authors, Kobe Yamada. But the best thing about this book is the pictures, which are done by Gabriela Barash. Beautiful book artwork is amazing. This is it. This is your rare and wonderful life. It's the greatest gift you will ever receive. Everything you want and everything you dream of is waiting. You have a vast treasure of talents and potential hidden inside of you, and your life is ready for you to discover all of it. Why not find out how remarkable your life can be? Why not make the most of every moment? You were born for wonder and awe. You are here to marvel at the beauty of this world and to experience the joy of being alive. Be a stranger to the ordinary. Get to know the unknown. Why not try something you've never tried before? Why not go somewhere you've never gone before? Stay curious, have adventures, make room for what you love, discover the world's wonders, and know you are one of them too. So much of life depends on how you look at things and how you see yourself. You're shaped by the choices you make. How will you answer when today asks what you learned from yesterday? Why not see how good your best can be? Why not make the most of your life? Things won't always go according to plan. The way might be difficult. You may get worn out and tired. You may feel lost. You might want to turn back. But know that every step moves you a little closer to where you want to go. And if you have the courage to take it, embrace it all, even the messy parts, especially the messy parts. And don't be fooled by fear. It has a way of shrinking possibilities and diminishing dreams. Have faith. Keep going. You can make a difference. You're made of sunrises and second chances. You are the hope of a brand new day. Even if the odds are 1,000,000 to 1, why not be the one? Don't wait for things to be grateful. Paying attention is an act of love. Noticing is caring. Beauty is all around and in everything. It just needs you to recognize it. Why not look for the good in everyone and everything? Open your heart. Take it all in. This is your everywhere. This is your home. You are connected to everything, and everything is connected to you. Every little bit of good helps. Every act of kindness builds. Every bit of compassion heals. Everything you have ever loved becomes a part of you. It all counts. Why not leave this world a little better than you found it? And that also fits for Earth Day too, doesn't it? Why not leave this world a little better than you found it? Okay, now it's time for the children's blessing. We are blessed. We are blessed by being here. We are blessed by being here together.
Many ways we give to the life of our church, and the monetary offering is just one of these ways. Each month, we partner with a local organization and share the money we collect. Our partner for April is the Racine Urban Garden Network. Since 2009, Racine Urban Garden Network, or RUGAN, has been providing the space, tools, and support for people to grow their own food. RUGAN has 9 urban gardens throughout the city with a total of 300 plots and is an all-volunteer organization. From the board to garden managers to the youth, church, and community groups that maintain the gardens. The suggested donation per plot is $30 per season and includes access to a shed, tools, and water supply. RUGAN can waive this fee for low-income families. RUGAN also organizes free workshops on food preservation, organic gardening, and composting, and co-sponsors a free music festival with Family Power Music in June. More information on how to give can be found on the back of your order of service. Thank you, as always, for your generosity. Sorry, my throat's all froggy today. Part of being in community is sharing our joys and our sorrows with one another. We draw strength from celebrating the joys in each other's lives and lending support, comfort, and care when we experience one of life's many sorrows. We offer you 2 different ways to express the joys and sorrows that may be on your heart this morning, spoken and unspoken. If you would like to share a spoken joy or sorrow, I'll ask you to come forward to the microphone first, or you may raise your hand, and a microphone will be brought to you. Once the spoken joys and sorrows are finished, you may come forward and light a candle to represent the unspoken joy or sorrow that is on your heart. Please remember that our service is being streamed online, so please be sure that any spoken joy or sorrow you share is one you're comfortable sharing with a wider community than just inside these walls with us this morning. Those who would like to share spoken joys or sorrows may come forward at this time.
Good morning. I'm Maria Scott. I was here last night for a concert. It was remarkable. And part of the celebration for the concert was this organ. They refurbished this organ, and it was stunning. The first note was Phantom of the Opera. It was remarkable. And it was really an amazing investment that this church, this congregation put into this church building. Really remarkable.
Andy Berezowitz. I have a great joy that I would like a candle lit for my spouse, Bronna Wallman, who will be celebrating her 75th birthday this Thursday, April 23rd.
Am I on? And on that note, I'm wishing a happy birthday to my birthday twin, not the same year, my sister Maria. Happy birthday, Mia! Today.
Okay, I can do this. So Nancy Hennessy, been here for a long time. So this is sort of a spur of the moment celebration of spring. So yes, spring, we're obviously onions in that are in my pantry. Yes, they've arrived and notified me. But I had another notification this morning. So many of you may know that I have been planting native plants and having a wild yard for a very, very long time. And somewhere I just looked in my garden log and saw that in 2013, I think it was 2013, Melissa Warner gave me, at my request, a clump that was dug from the hillside at the house that they lived in on North Green Bay Road of trout lily. She had a whole hillside of trout lily blooming. So I brought this little clump home and put it in my yard in a spot that I thought would be happy for it. And went out the next year. Yes, it was still alive. Okay, that was good. And then in the years that followed, each year I would go out to see how it was doing, and it spread gradually. It is now spreading a little more aggressively, which is nice. And if you know trout lily, it gets its name because the leaves of it, which kind of lay down, are obviously lily-like, and they're mottled, so like the fish, the trout. That's where it gets the name, anyway. Anyway, each year I would go out thinking, is this the year that it's going to bloom? And each year, there was no bloom. It was healthy, it was growing, it was spreading, but not blooming. Well, last year, for the first time, one bloom. And this year, again, one lily blooming. I could show you a picture of it. So that's a long time, and that's a comment on nature, how nature works. And native plants take their time, and they are persistent, but you have to be patient if you are going to garden with native plants anyway.
Sure.
I'm Rachel Choba. This will be short. I just can't resist. Today is April 19th, and it's the birthday of the horse I used to own. His name is Carson. And it's also a holiday that we celebrated in Massachusetts the 19th of April, 1775.
I'm Wendy McKelvey, and I have to corroborate the wildflower thing because the trout lilies from my ravine are definitely moving into my garden. But I planted 2 bloodroots a couple years ago, and I'd come out, same thing. Are they still there? Are they still there? This year I had 2 massive clumps. I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden they said, okay, it's our time. And and the bluebells are, I have a mass of those in one part there. I planted bulbs several years ago. So I don't know. It was a wonderful year. Yeah. Okay.
If you would like to light a candle for an unspoken joy or sorrow, you may come forward at this time. We light one final candle for an unspoken joy or sorrow. Excuse me. We light one final candle for the joys and sorrows that are in the hearts of our beloveds joining us online. There is a love holding us always. May we rest in that love. Amen, and blessed be. All are invited to join in singing There is a Love. The words are in your order of service.
Let us be in a spirit of meditation and or prayer. When I was a child, my stepmother gave me and my sister each a lima bean. She showed us how to dampen some blotting paper and line a jam jar with it, and how to place the bean carefully between the blotting paper and the jar. She told us to stand the jars on the windowsill in our bedroom and keep the blotting paper wet and watch to see what would happen. A little later, I took my bean out and I polished it up with a bit of furniture polish. It was all shiny now and smelled way better than my sister's bean. In a few days, my sister's bean swelled and a strong white root pushed out of the bottom of the bean. My bean just sat there. A week later, my sister's bean sprouted a green shoot that forced its way up and out of the top of the jar. My bean did nothing but began to look wrinkly. In another week, my sister's jar was full of roots and shoots, and the bean was ready to be planted. My bean shriveled up and fell to the bottom of the jar, and I threw it away. Spirit of life, how often have I covered things with furniture polish to make them shiny, to make them smell better? How often in my life have I cared more about the way things looked and how they smelled rather than how they really were? I spent half a lifetime covering my feelings with the emotional equivalent of furniture polish, thinking that if I looked good and smelled good, the ache inside would go away. But spirits are not like beans, thank God. They may shrivel with neglect, but as long as life persists, there is a chance to wash off the polish and redeem the growing thing inside. So may it be, blessed be, and amen. comes the sun. Here comes the sun, and I'll say it's all right. Little darling, it's been a long, cold, lonely winter. Little darling, it seems like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun, doo-doo-doo. Here comes the sun, and I say it's all right. Little darling, I might be turning to their faces. Little darling, it seems like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun, doo-doo-doo. Here comes the sun, and I say it's all right. Sun, 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 here it comes. 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 Little darling, I feel the ice is slowly melting. Little darling, it seems like years since it's been clear. Here comes the sun, doo-doo-doo-doo. Here comes the sun, and I say it's all right. Here comes the sun, doo-doo-doo-doo. Here comes the sun, and I say it's all right. It's all right. Two weeks ago, we celebrated Easter, April 5th. But last year, Easter was a lot later. It was on April 20th. And the year before, it was even earlier. It was just at the end of March. Have you ever wondered why it varies so much? It can be as early as March 22nd and as late as April 25th. And the history is kind of interesting. In the first 3 centuries of Christianity, many Christians celebrated Jesus' resurrection from the dead on the 14th day of the Jewish month of Nisan, or at the same time as Passover. And this made sense at the time because the night before Jesus died, he seems to have been celebrating a Passover meal with his disciples. So the Sunday after that seemed like a good day to celebrate his resurrection. But the trouble with using that date was that Christians were forced to depend on Jewish scholars to tell them when the date would be each year. And they thought we shouldn't have to depend on a religion we've separated from to tell us what our feast days are. So when Christian bishops met at the Council of Nicaea in year 325 to vote on whether Jesus was God or not, our side lost, by the way, but that's another story. But they also voted on a date for Easter. And they decided, of course, it had to be spring, so sometime after March 21st. But the bishops wanted it to be fairly bright outside, even at night, to make it convenient for pilgrims who were traveling at night. So they decided there had to be a full moon out, too. And of course, it had to be on a Sunday, since that was the day of the week they believed Jesus rose from the dead. So they made Easter fall on the first Sunday after the first full moon after the spring equinox. And sometimes that date comes as early as March 22nd, sometimes it comes as late as April 25th. But it's always the first Sunday after the first full moon after the vernal equinox. Little known and less cared about facts from your minister emeritus. But how Christian was Easter in the beginning? Well, the word Easter itself is of pagan origin. It comes from the Teutonic Aostre, which was the name of the goddess of the dawn, or goddess of the rising sun. In fact, our very words, East and Eastern, come from her name, since the dawn always rises in that direction. Depending on the language where Aostre was honored, her name was sometimes pronounced Aostre, Aostre, Astarte, Ishtar, and in Hebrew it came out as Esther, who's the hero of the Jewish spring festival of Purim, though she's not a goddess in that story, she's a queen. But so am I. Where'd that come from? Okay. Most of the symbols we now associate with Easter were associated with this goddess. Easter eggs, for example, have always been symbols of new life, and the practice of exchanging them goes back to the ancient Persians and Egyptians. They used to dye them in bright colors and give them as gifts in the spring. So eggs were one of Aostre's main symbols, and so were rabbits. Well, actually hares, because they're also symbols of fertility. And I know because I used to have a Planned Parenthood t-shirt, and it had Planned Parenthood and it had a bunch of rabbits on each other. So we know that that's a symbol of fertility. So next time you hear, "Here comes Peter Cottontail, hopping down the bunny trail, hippity-hoppity, Easter's on its way," remember, it's honoring that part of the Easter origin. Some of the other common symbols of spring were lambs, which were also fertility symbols, but they became popular in the Christian world largely because of the spring festival in Judaism of Passover, since Jesus came to be called the Passover lamb or Paschal lamb. As a matter of fact, in many European countries, the name for Easter is Pasch, from the Jewish Paschal feast. Pasch derives from the Hebrew Pasach, which means to pass over. And of course, light, fire, candles, these two became became Easter symbols because they're all associated with the sun that has finally taken over the dark. So it's still common from the fires that Persians jump over on the first day of spring, even Muslim Persians do this, to the Paschal candle representing Jesus. So the word Easter and most of our Easter symbols are pagan in origin. And in fact, that's one of the reasons why the English Parliament passed an ordinance in 1647 banning the observance of Easter, and Christmas too, of course. They banned it as pagan superstition. And it's also why Jehovah's Witnesses still don't celebrate Christmas or Easter. Of course, I happen to like pagan superstition, so it's one of the reasons I like Christmas and Easter, but that's just me. The important thing to remember, I think, is that nearly all cultures have celebrated the coming of spring, which we are in the middle of right now. And since spring is when things come back to life, many ancient cultures celebrated a God who died and was resurrected in the spring. The early Greeks had a female god, Persephone, called Proserpina by the Romans, who went down to the land of the death in the winter, but came back to life in the spring. Which isn't that weird. Some people go to Florida or Arizona for the winter, and they're resurrected back in Wisconsin in the spring. Even some UUs I know. Anyway, according to the story, Persephone was the goddess of growing things, and she was beautiful. And Pluto, god of the underworld, that is, ruler of the land of death, fell in love with her and wanted her for his bride. He plotted secretly and abducted her to his kingdom, and while she was there, he tricked her into eating a pomegranate seed. And you see, once you've eaten something in the land of death, you have to stay there. So she couldn't come out. Now, Persephone's mother was very upset about losing her daughter, so upset that she made a famine happen all over the world so people wouldn't have any fruits to offer the gods and goddesses for sacrifices. She did that in order to get the other gods upset enough to rescue her daughter for her. They finally did, and they got Pluto to give Persephone up for 2/3 of the year. But the other 1/3 of the year, Persephone had to stay down in Hades. And that's why nothing much grows during the winter, because Persephone, the goddess of growing things, is down there in the underworld with Pluto, who was not just a dwarf planet or a cartoon friend of Mickey Mouse, but a god. But when she comes back in the spring, everything grows again. And many of our ancestors celebrated her resurrection long before they ever heard of the resurrection of Jesus. Anyway, we know that in the earliest centuries of the Christian era, in those areas where pagans and Christians lived near each other, they sometimes quarreled about whose Easter was true. The pagans would note that they had been celebrating their God's resurrection centuries before the Christians had, and of course they were right about that. But the Christians would counter that the devil had created false gods before Jesus' coming so as to confuse them. An early case of fake news. As you can imagine, this wasn't a particularly persuasive argument for most pagans, since they did have the resurrection first. What both groups seemed to lose sight of was the fact that, regardless of differences in theology, springtime is a season of new life, of renewal, a time when light overtakes the dark and hope overcomes despair. And we see it all over the world. Buddhists, for example, celebrate Buddha's birthday in the spring. Jains celebrate Mahavira's birthday in the spring too. Zoroastrians celebrate Zarathustra's. There's the Jewish Spring Festival of Passover, which just ended a week and a half ago. The Hindu celebration of Holi, where they throw bright-colored powders and water on each other. Shinto's Setsun Bunsai, bean-throwing festival in Japan. Baha'i New Year, Earth Day, all spring festivals. You see, regardless of theology, people all over the world have looked at the earth in spring, and they've seen the ice slowly melting, and they've taken that message into their hearts, and they've decided to let the ice that divides us from one another melt too. You know, you really see this when we have a particularly nice day after a cold spell. I've noticed this. It's been a long, cold, several days, maybe a week. Suddenly nice. People start talking to each other. They greet strangers. They go out of the way to open doors to let someone go in line ahead of them. Or they offer to carry a heavy package. Or they just smile. Regardless of theology, people all over the world have looked at the earth in spring and seen shoots coming up from seeds that have lain dormant under the ground. And they have taken that message into their hearts. And they've decided, maybe I too can sprout in some way. Maybe some seed that's lain dormant inside me for too long can be nourished back to life. Maybe there's even something in the world around me waiting to come back to life, if I'll only look carefully enough. This is the original meaning behind all the other spring holidays. And today, as we are in the very middle of spring, I ask you to consider looking at your life maybe in a new way. Have you been holding on to something that's no longer helpful? Something that is perhaps keeping you from seeing the people around you and the world around you as you might see them? Some Buddhists say this should be a time of spring cleaning, but not just of your home, but of your mind. As an old Buddhist proverb puts it, which is more important, the dust in the corner of your house or the cobweb in your mind? So I invite you to pick maybe one aspect of your life, one problem you've been dealing with, one way of seeing things that may no longer work for you, maybe one habit you've decided you no longer want to continue. Whatever it is, consider doing some spring cleaning. You don't have to decide right now what it'll be, but let the idea percolate. And to help you do that, let me tell you a couple stories, one that happened to someone else and one that happened to me. My first story is about a woman named Hazel. Hazel loved to sing. She loved to sing so much that she decided to sing in her church's choir. The problem was she couldn't sing on key, so they told her she'd have to drop out. Now, Hazel was getting up in years and lived in a rundown apartment building where mostly poor people living on Social Security lived. And one day, Hazel noticed a young hippie-looking guy moving into one of the tiny apartments. He had a great big beard and long hair, and all the other tenants started talking about how worried they were about him. "We're in real trouble now," said one lady. "Once these tough-looking characters move in, they always take over." And people in the apartment building started putting extra locks on their doors, just in case he was a thief. Well, Hazel was a little worried too. And one night, she came home later than usual, and as she went up the stairs, she saw this hippie-looking guy in the hallway, and she was frightened. She almost wanted to scream or run back down the stairs, but instead, she started to sing. In her own off-key way, she started to sing the very first song that came to her mind. "When you walk through a storm, hold your head up high, and don't be afraid of the dark." That's the only song she could remember, and she was so scared she just kept singing. walk on with hope in your heart, and you'll never walk alone." When she got to that part, she reached her apartment, opened the door, went in, and locked it. And she waited to see if she could hear anything outside, but she didn't, so she went to bed. The next morning, she saw a torn, crumpled note under her door. It was from that hippie-looking guy that everyone was afraid of. And it said, "I don't know who you are, but thank you for singing to me last night. I was ready to cash in, commit suicide. But then you started to sing, 'When you walk through a storm, hold your head up high, and you'll never walk alone.' And I just want you to know that you saved my life. I'm going to another city where I know I can find the job I need. Thank you, and goodbye." And here's something I witnessed. It's probably 30 years ago. I'm very old. But it was a day in spring, and I was dropping off a sermon that a member of the church had agreed to type up for printing. That was Lucinda Cloutier. Some of you might remember her. She died later. And anyway, her son Alex, when I came over to the house, Alex was out in the front yard picking dandelions. And he was just having a great time. He had a whole bouquet of dandelions. And he asked me did I want some to take home. And I said, "Oh, yes." And he went around picking dozens more. And you could tell he thought that he had the most beautiful bouquet of flowers in the world. He had a pile of what we call weeds, and he thought they were flowers. And I remember thinking at the time that the only reason dandelions are considered weeds is that we call them that. One could think of them as very hardy wildflowers. Of course, I'm not going to suggest to any of you that you go out and weed or seed your lawn with dandelions. I don't think you need to. It'll take care of itself. But I would suggest that there may be some things in your life, maybe even some people, that you've always thought were weeds, which you could see differently. I don't know what those might be for you, but I suspect you will know when the time comes. Now, I could just end here and say, this spring thing sounds very nice, pretty pleasant. See the light within, nourish the seed that's lain dormant, watch it grow. How beautiful is that? Unfortunately, it's not always so easy to do that. Or maybe it's not so unfortunate. Maybe it's fortunate that it's so hard. I don't know. But have you, any of you ever watched an egg hatch? I have. I've seen that. I remember seeing it long ago. If you've ever watched an egg hatching, you'll know it takes quite a while. But it looks fairly simple. I mean, you see the egg wiggle a little. It's fun to see. You hear some muffled pecking or scratching sounds inside. Then maybe a tiny crack appears, eventually a slightly bigger crack, and maybe even a tiny hole. But it usually takes hours and hours, though it may look simple from the outside. You know, it looks like this. You think there's just this little creature inside who's sort of leisurely breaking up its shell. Well, it's not quite that from the bird's perspective. From the baby bird's perspective, it's a grueling experience. Here it's been inside its own little world, protected by its shell, and digesting the liquid food around it. Sweet life. But at some point, the food is gone, and the chick is getting hungry, and it's also feeling cramped and squeezed by this hard wall around it. So what can it do? It's being squeezed to death and starved to death, and it's becoming desperate. It's so distraught that it begins pecking away at the world around it until it gets some breathing room. In desperation, it eats the shell surrounding it and starts squeezing through the cracks. And it may look cute from the outside, but it's not that way from inside. And it takes hours. The chick pecks and pecks because it doesn't know what else to do. And it gets worn out and has to stop. But then it tries again, and it gets worn out again, and even hungrier this time. But it's just too tired, so it has to quit for a while. And then it tries again. It's sort of like, knocking your head against a wall, and it doesn't seem to do any good, but you don't know what else to do. So you keep doing it, and then you lay back exhausted, and then you do it again. And you keep doing it until you either break free of that shell or you kill yourself trying. Or as the British author C.S. Lewis once put it, you cannot go on indefinitely being just an ordinary, decent egg. We must be hatched. We must be hatched or go bad. That's what an Easter experience really is. It's not just modifying the life around you, but breaking out of the mold you've been in. So it's not so much a change as a transformation. Your world implodes, and you break free, and you fall into a new world, the world outside your shell, and that's scary. And a part of you wishes you could just go back into the world you know, but even now you realize you couldn't stay in that world. It was smothering you. You were desperate. You had to get out of that stifling relationship, that stifling role you had taken on, that stifling job or career that you couldn't just, the stifling religion or worldview that was so comforting at one time, but you just knew was too restrictive for who you've become. I don't know what your particular eggshell was or is. Maybe you feel you're still in one and will be in the future. But I do know from talking to many of you over the years, and I came in 1975, so it's been 50 years. I told you I was old. I know from talking to many of you that most of you have had that experience of breaking out of the world you knew, and it was no more graceful than a baby chick pecking through its shell, even though it might have looked graceful to the people on the outside. I even think our country is going through an experience like that. We seem to be squeezed behind a desperate shell that no longer works as a worldview. But my gosh, picking away at it is so exhausting, and we don't know how long it'll take and what the future holds. We can't see the world on the other side or even know if it's better. And all we know is that we've got to keep pecking away, and we're feeling squeezed and cramped, and it's not pleasant, and it might not be for a while. But we're in this egg together, and we need to keep pecking away, because one day Don't know if it'll be in my lifetime, but one day people will perhaps look back at this time and they will be happy that we did not give up the struggle, that we did not forsake our values and our vision. And whether we win or lose, future generations may look back and say, there lived a valiant people. They fought for what they believed in. And they didn't all live to see the fruits of the seeds they planted, but they planted anyway because they knew it was important to do. There lived a people who didn't see all their dreams come true, but knew it was important to dream anyway. There lived a people who were met with obstacles at every turn, but did not shy away from them. A people who were told their views didn't count and their cause would fail, and so it'd be smarter to shut up, and they said no. There lived a people. And I'm looking at some of them now. I'm looking at them, and I so want them to know that it is important that they are here, engaging hands and hearts to end oppression, because whether they succeed in everything they try or not, it's important that they tried. I'm looking at them, and I know they'll crack open the egg or die trying. When you walk through the storm, hold your head up high, and don't be afraid of the dark. At the end of the storm is a golden sky and the sweet silver song of a lark. Walk on through the wind, walk on through the rain, though your dreams be tossed and blown. Walk on with hope in your heart, and you'll never walk alone. You'll never walk alone. Would you join with me in singing a song of the soul, printed in your order of service, and be sure to look at the back page for the other verses. So it starts here, but it goes here. So please rise in body or spirit. Open mine eyes that I may see glimpses of truth revealed over me. Open mine eyes, illumine me, Spirit divine. Love of my life, dancing along in the meadows, there's no silence. Happy spring, everyone. And today I prescribe for you at least one telephone call or text message to someone you love today, at least 2 smiles to people you're not sure deserve it, at least 1 hug to a pet or a friend or a stranger, and at least 1 sunrise to look at in the weeks ahead, and more love than you can stand. We extinguish the flame in this chalice, but the fire and the light go on in you. This service of Eastering has ended. Your service to the rest of the world has begun again. Peace and unrest.
Good morning, I'm Gregory Mason. We'll have some announcements, and we're going to start with Jody Spencer.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jody Spencer, she, hers. I am the co-chair of a task force for housing through Racine Interfaith Coalition. And we're hosting a housing fair on May 16th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the former Chavez Center. I don't know what else to call it, but the old Douglas Park. And we should be able to have food trucks and giveaways and such. If you have anything to do with like housing resources, I would appreciate if you shared the word to businesses and organizations. And if you are looking to improve your own housing situation, we're hoping that you attend this fair and find the resources that might help you. So there's a QR code at the bottom of this. There are some in the hall, and I have plenty, so see me. Thank you.
Thank you, Jody. The deadline for paper raise right orders is today. If you need a form, come and see me. The deadline to get announcements, news, and community events into the May Unifier is April 25th. This is a save the date. It's for the Stewardship Campaign Celebration Dinner on May 15th. The Midwest Unitarian Universalist Summer Assembly, known as MUSA, will be meeting at Ripon College July 5th through the 11th. MUSA is an intergenerational week-long camp for all ages. It is a place for spiritual reflection, intellectual growth, and creative play within a caring and supportive community. For more information, contact Jay Warner. If you need to reference the monthly Unifier email, there is a link in each Sunday's email that will take you to it. Be sure to check your monthly and weekly emails for more information on some of these announcements, along with community events and other news that are not announced here in church. Thank you to our volunteers today, our ushers, Andrea Bumpers and Kathy Carson, our coffee hour host, the Religious Education Department, our Zoom host, Mary Graham, and our cell phone monitor, Jen Simpkins. That's all for announcements. Please join us for an all-ages spring brunch provided by the Religious Education Department in Erman Hall. For those on YouTube, log into Zoom for your coffee hour. The link is in today's email.